Like every single morning in Ponyville, Twinkle Mint was getting ready to go to work. She had been working with Sweet Drop's candy store for the past year. Since she moved from Baltimore to Ponyville, every pony in town was just so adoring about how much she is very open, she is very kind, always smiling, and even all the customers and even the sweet drops love her confident to other customers. When she was first hired by Sweet Drops, she was a little bit curious if how her personality would be towards the customers. So during the first few days when she started working there, she had her to stand in a front desk for customers, and she always smiled, and she seems to have any sort of problem to handle customers in it right away. So they made Sweet Drops ask her if she had any some sort of experience in sort of work in store before. And Twinkle Mint actually mentioned just when she applied for the work that she used to work in a local food store in Baltimore before she moved. And the reason why she moved from Baltimore was that she wanted to move to more common, small, more quiet region area. There was always a lot of business since Baltimore was a major city, and she preferred to be living in more quiet region. So before she had just moved from Baltimore, she looked around on maps, newspapers, if there was any sort of place where you can move, which were more quieter, and also that's something that she could like to live. And after almost 2 months of searching, she only found a few places, but some of them were in Trollingham, Manhattan, and they were even in Canterlot. But they were actually still a major city. But then she saw a small ad in a local newspaper from when she was in nearby Ponyville that there was a small apartment big enough for her, and the rent was very reasonable price. So she asked the owner of the building if she could have had this apartment, and turns out she could have it. So only about a few months later, she had just moved to Ponyville. Even then, when she moved there, she had many new friends, along from Pinkie Pie, Applejack, and many others. Even during this particular time, when she had just moved there, she were very still curious much about the pony life. Just after being living there for about almost from 4 to 5 months, she had actually quickly get used to living as this small town area. Almost there were no big sounds from any a major city. It was large compared with that. So every morning when she wakes up, it is always quiet, except for the bird singing. That was the one thing that she loved the most of Ponyville. Waking up to birds singing in the morning and just knowing that the town itself is a small one, and even it is not so far from Canterlot, but there's a reasonable distance between that capital and the small town of Ponyville. Ever since she started working there, she started working for the Sweet Drops, but sometimes when she doesn't even work, she even goes around the town, asks if any pony needs any help, like if anyone needs help from the park, the market, or even perhaps sometimes at Sweet Alpha Lakers. But it did actually happen one time when she did actually help the school with Shirley. Even though that Twinkle Mint isn't trained as a teacher or any sort of educational system, but she was very helpful in that. But one day, when she was working at the Sweet Drops candy store. She ran into some pony one she has never seen before, and that was actually Appleberry, who had recently moved to Ponyville herself from Trollingham. The reason why she moved from Trollingham to Ponyville, it was that she just recently had just lost her mother. And since she had no other family members alive anymore, so she felt lonely. Even she had many friends back home, but she still felt lonely. And she wanted something more new experience. So she applied for work in Ponyville. And she was actually working for also for she was actually working with Rosalak as in her florist shop. That was something that when Twinkle Mint saw her, she was very curious to know more about her. So it actually happened that they actually saw each other quite often after work. They used to get to know each other, like some friends. But there was just one thing that happened though. Because one day, Rosalak and Appleberry were talking. They talked mostly about anything, anything at all. But we just one thing that Rosalak then asked her if Appleberry had thought maybe to go out with this particular stallion who had asked her out yet. But Applemint, Appleberry thought maybe that she didn't feel ready to be doing any dating at the moment. But at least Rosalak tried to convince her to do some try at least. So Appleberry said yes to the stallion. And turns out this stallion was a gentleman. He was handsome, strong, honest, and funny. Everything that she wanted to have in a stallion. So as the time passed, things seemed to be going quite well between them. And even that everything seems going quite well, and her friendship with Twinkle Mint seems to go would even get stronger. But one day, when when Appleberry and her boyfriend had been together for almost 2 months, he had been offered a big work opportunity, a promotion. But there was just one catch. He had to move to Vancouver. It was across the country. And in order to do so, he then had to ask Appleberry if she wanted to move with him to Vancouver. But she didn't want to move so quickly, even that she just had been dating him for only a short time. And she just had been living in Ponyville for some time as well, and she get used to it. And since Vancouver is also a major city, she thought maybe that if they could try to work it out in long distance. And since he had recently just had been accepted the promotion, and he was going to be in Vancouver within the next couple of days. So he thought his dad told her that he would give her some time to think about it, and that he had to go there to get his office and his new apartment ready for perhaps when if he was ready to go there. So a couple of days later, he left, and Appleberry felt lonely, but even though that she knows that he still is out there somewhere waiting for her to be there, as always that he promised, he did actually wrote back to her. And he wrote and asked if she was ready to move there, to be with him. He had just recently bought a bigger apartment just for both of them, and it was closer to his work, and that she can always go back to see her friends as many when she wants to. But she couldn't say yes or no yet. So she decided to go see this place, and she went though to see him in Vancouver. And when she got there, it was nothing like she was never experienced to. Even her apartment was almost 3 times big as her own. She would have her own room, and even have one room for that she could do has a study room or workshop. And the kitchen was so big that she couldn't really have a party there. And he then had asked if she felt ready to move there. But even she did want to be with him. But she didn't want to move from Ponyville to be with him, just move across the country, just to be there. He tried to convince her, even tried to make her feel home. But every time he tried, it failed. So, after much after much thought, she decided it wasn't even worth it. But he tried to say, perhaps do that you could still live in Ponyville, but we can do this as a long distance relationship. And even from that thought made her consider yes, she could just try to make it a long distance, and they could travel between each other as often as they could. So for the first 2 months, it seemed to be going quite well between them. He traveled to Ponyville as often as he could, but then suddenly it all stopped. For once, he traveled there to almost every single weekend, but once later on, there was only one time in the weekend, and then to almost one time in a month. First, she thought maybe they was doing his work, which was most one of the main reasons. But the second was that he didn't felt commitment to travel back and forward just to see her for only for a weekend and then go back home for the work for a week and go see her on Friday and go back home on Sunday. He tried to make it work, and he tried once again, trying to convince her to move to Vancouver to be with him. But to the end, she said no. But then she decided to break up with him and move back to Ponyville. He tried to talk to her once again over letters by trying to convince her at least to come back, that he misses her, and that they could try to work it out, that he can try to be together as much as he could. He told her that he could even buy her a small apartment as maybe halfway between Ponyville and Vancouver. But she said no right away. And that was the final line she heard from him. And though, when she came home, everything was back to normal, even when she felt quite lonely. Even she hadn't even told much about this event to her friends, because she didn't want to have this revealed too much to all of them. But after a while, she had at least opened up herself what truly had just happened, because one day Roselight asked Appleberry when she was going to see her boyfriend again. She hasn't been traveling to Vancouver almost for about a month, but Appleberry mentioned that she was never going back there because they had broken up, and Roselight was just like, "What? What happened?" And Appleberry explained to her all the details of this happened. And even Appleberry thought maybe it wasn't worth or try. Maybe it is long distance didn't work out as they thought. So they tried at least to work it out. But every time when she get back home though, she cried in her bed, crying that she will never find her true love and that she will never find any opponent to be with, and all the tries she had failed. But Rose Larkin and had another friend of hers, Vinyl, had maybe convinced, tried maybe a blind date or a speed dating, which it was very common to use now in Ponyville at least. But he decided to put dating on hold since she just recently broke up with her boyfriend, so her friends back off from that point. So for the next couple of days and passed from 2 weeks, then to almost 2 months afterwards. But her friendship with Twinkle Mint had remained strong. She has always been there by her side, anything at any weather, at any moment. So Shortly after she came back home, Twinkle Mint had spent a lot of time with her friend Appleberry to cheer her up, to see, take her to the park, or just take her to the movies or the bowling alley, which helped to cheer her up a lot. But over time, almost 2 months after the breakup with her boyfriend, she had felt maybe it was time to maybe do this speed dating or blind date. But she didn't know how to do that. So, but then Octavia, Vinyl's friend, had then proposed maybe set up her date for Appleberry. So she did. So when Appleberry met this stallion at the restaurant, she thought maybe he was quite handsome, but it turns out they had almost nothing in common, except for maybe his favorite music style, but otherwise nothing. So Appleberry felt very devastated. She was losing hope to find her special song pony. Even after so much tries, she wanted to be with some pony, but at the moment, it felt she was never going to find any pony to be with. But then, after almost being given up hope, she got a message. But it wasn't any particular message. In fact, one morning, when she opened the door to get her morning's newspaper, she found a box. When she opened the box, it was a of paper heart, and some chocolate. She was curious who could have given her this, and but then she thought, since it was just recently had been Hearts and Hoops Day, so who had given this to her? So she read another letter to the heart. Heart, roses are red, violets are blue, you're sweet as sugar, signed Secret Admirer. So, who was this secret admirer? For the next couple of days, though, she get often some things like uh, flowers or just some candy, but not as much big in a large amount. Sometimes I use a small box with some of her favorite candy. So she then decided to go make some figure out figure out who had been sending this. So she went to the post office, asked any of those post office workers like Gabby or Derby if they had any idea who this mysterious secret admirer can have been. But they turned out almost no leads because they have no idea who it was. Because every single time when the boxes showed up, they didn't deliver it. Because when she remembers, there were no post stamp on the card. There were literally no address on the box. Only her name, but nothing else was an address or any postmark on it. But though the question is about the flowers, she went to see Roseluck if she had recently sold any particular flowers off to that particular flower to any point recently. But she hasn't. She was even puzzled to hear all about this. But it turns out, though, who was giving all these gifts to her in the first place? Who was her secret admirer? She was scratching her head almost all time, figure out who can it have been. It could not have been her ex-boyfriend because he would never done this before. So, who was it? But then she came up with an idea. Wait up in early morning, just at the door, hoping to catch who did this. So, only about a day later, early in the morning, around 5 to 6 a.m., she wanders and waited until she hears a sound outside. She looks through the window, but it was just a cat. But then she looks again when she heard another sound. It was a pony. Just before she opened, the pony was gone. She looked around and down up and down the streets, but nothing. Nowhere. No pony was nearby. Though she managed to see at least a glimpse of this pony. But this pony was wearing a cloak, so she couldn't recognize if there was any of her friends or any some sort of prank on this. She couldn't even see the mane color, the coat color, or even the cute mark. So she had no idea who it could have been. It could have been any pony, like one of the friends, like Vinyl, or perhaps even Pinkie Pie. But after she could figure out them for a moment, all the gifts had made her feel happy. So there cannot have been a part as a prank. But who did this? But in the box under this display, there was only a note with some candy. The note said, "If you are ready to meet your secret admirer, meet me at the park at noon at the fountain. I will be there. Signed, Secret Admirer." Now she was finally to get to know the bottom of this. Figure out who was giving all these gifts to her in the first place. So, around noon, she went to the park, waited at the fountain. As time passed, nothing. No pony showed up. Until she heard a voice. She turned around and saw it was her friend Twinkle Mint. She didn't think about much about it because there were a few other ponies nearby. So she went before her friend even came there. She looked around, studied some of the ponies, maybe figure out who or one of them who could have been the secret admirer. But nothing. But when Twinkle Mint talked to her friend, and then Twinkle Mint explained to her that she was the secret admirer to Appleberry, which at first Appleberry didn't believe at first, because she didn't mention to any pony about what exactly was in the box. But then she cited the quote, the first on the card she got from her. "Roses are red, violets are blue, you're sweet as sugar, signed by secret admirer." Then she realized that was the true purpose of it. So Appleberry asked her right away, why? The reason was, first she asked her, was this all a prank? But Twinkle Mint said no. "I would never do this as ever as a prank." She told her the true reason why she did this. And it was that she had fallen in love with her. Twinkle Mint had fallen in love with Appleberry for the past 2 months. And after she found out that her boyfriend just decided maybe it wasn't that she decided it was no longer be worth to be with her boyfriend. So that was when she decided maybe to do something to cheer her up. But even through this time when they went to the park or the bowling alley or to the movies together as friends, she always wanted to admit her true feelings towards Appleberry. But to the end though, she didn't. The reason was that even she did that, she was very scared how Appleberry will take it. She thought maybe that she would just laugh at her, saying that, "Oh, I'm sorry, Twinkle Mint, I only into stallions." But she couldn't even hold it anymore, so she decided maybe it was time to tell her. So then, after she had told, she said that she understood if she didn't like her back the same way. But before she was about to leave, Appleberry stopped her right away. "Wait," she said. "So you did all this because you're in love with me?" And Twinkle Mint just nodded and said yes. And then Appleberry mentioned that she would be willing to give Twinkle Mint a chance to be with her. So she asked if she wanted maybe go on a date with her tomorrow. And Twinkle Mint said yes with a smile and blushed. So the next day, both of them decided to go to the park to have a picnic. They decided to meet at the fountain as they did the day before. Even though that even Twinkle Mint were quite nervous. She wondered if she would make some stupid mistake and ruin her date with Appleberry. But Appleberry, she didn't mind if Twinkle Mint did something goofy. And it turns out, it actually went a perfect date. Both of them had this amazing time. And even sometimes after, though, they kept this dating as a secret from their friends for at least a short while, because they wanted to see how or if they would even go work out. So, after being dating for about 2 weeks, they admit their true friends about all about this to their friends, and they were all happy. Just surprised that they have been dating a secret, but over 2 weeks. But at least as long as they are happy, they are happy. But there were just one thing that the most thing Twinkle Mint had in mind. She had finally found her true love. But then, Appleberry, she wondered how would her life been if she never gone out on a date with Twinkle Mint in the first place. But they both decided to take it slowly. So after nearly 2 years being dating, Appleberry had something in mind. On their 2 years anniversary, she took with Twinkle Mint to the park before having just sit there to relax when she decided to ask the big question. When she did show the ring and propose to her, she said yes immediately. Both their friends, but could not have been happier for both. Even though Twinkle Mint's family were happy all about this. Even though they were some of the close friends back home or some of the close family that she had, both of them was really beyond happiest. But there were one thing that they haven't decided yet. When or where to hold the wedding. But they did after some much thought. They decided to have it in City Hall, which was big enough for all the friends and family would come. And they even had a party which Pinky had organized for them. And later on, they actually went to Las Vegas for about a week on for honeymoon. And there they both had this amazing time. It's a great time. And then shortly 2 years after they'd been married, though, they thought maybe it was ready to have a family of their own. So Twinkle Mint, Twinkle Mint had asked Twilight if she could help them. So Twinkle Mint became pregnant first, and she had twin daughters. And after they, when the twins were about 4 years old, Appleberry decided she wanted to also have a family, a baby of her own. So she became pregnant also, and she had a boy. And even though they had a very hard time raising the twins, but they loved the family no matter what. And that's how Twinkle Mint and Appleberry found a true love and got a big family. The end.